In a world where dreams meet reality, there exists a place where your business can flourish. That place is Shopify. Imagine having the power to craft your online store with tools that make it as easy as a gentle breeze. Whether you're an artisan of handmade wonders, a creator of digital treasures, or a curator of the latest trends, Shopify stands by your side. With its customizable templates, seamless integrations, and support that's always there, your dream store is just a heartbeat away. Join millions of visionaries around the globe and let Shopify guide you on your journey. Visit roguemedianetwork.com/Shopify. That's roguemedianetwork.com/SHOPIFY. And embark on your free trial. Shopify, where your commerce dreams come to life.
I am Rachel Ruth Tate, and this is Text Astrology. People who have Jupiter in Taurus on the rising, they are lovers, not fighters. They are people who like to be a part of society. Jupiter is a social planet. So you're somebody who is probably greatly benefited by your associations with the world, and the world is benefited by its associations with you.
The connectivity almost.
Right.
Okay.
But whenever I look at a chart, so let's see, I don't know if the listeners will have this, but the circle part of the chart, if you took
that's my chart.
Yeah.
By the way, thank you so much for doing this.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, I really mean that. Like, I know this isn't like easy for you. Like, you know.
I do it for fun though. I would be thinking about stuff like this off the clock for no reason.
Okay.
It's my main jam. But when you look at a circle chart, I know a lot of people are like, what the hell is this chart? And if you just took a slice of the Earth from the North Pole to the South Pole, that is a cross section.
Okay.
So if you see the ascendant, or what I've been calling the rising, that is the eastern horizon.
Okay.
So when you were born, Jupiter, the planet, would have been visible on the eastern horizon if the sun weren't shining.
Okay.
Right? It is, so you wouldn't see it. But literally, it was right there.
Okay.
So it gives us an idea of the physical embodied person, the first house of self. But if I go across the way and if I drew an imaginary line, that would be the western horizon. So everything above is visible in the sky. Everything below.
So that's Jupiter right there.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
So it would be right there on the eastern horizon at the time of your birth. And in ancient astrology, as now, they'd be like, "Oh, good sign. This one's going to be lucky."
All right. Don't hold back. Anything like, tell me everything. That I get stuff too.
Well, I'm about to tell you something not as auspicious.
Okay.
So whenever I see a rising sign for anyone, so yours is Taurus.
Okay.
The planet that rules that sign is given special importance in the chart. It's like the chart leader. So as that planet.
So the rising planet is Jupiter, right? Or
you have Jupiter in Taurus on the rising.
Gotcha, okay.
Which gives Jupiter special importance, but a lot of people don't have any planets in their first house.
Okay.
In that case, and still in your case, I would look at the sign of Taurus and the planet that rules that. So for you, Venus would be of special importance in the chart. Now, that's nice because Venus has a very regular orbit. If you look up the Venus rose or the Venus pentagram, it has literally a perfect orbit. And so it is very good for giving Venus natives kind of, they're more regular. They're not up and down. They're not mercurial, right?
Okay.
To use that other word. They are more steady. Venus retrogrades, but not particularly often. They're usually affable. So probably throughout your life, you're known as an affable or genial, congenial, warm. Venus is about uniting. It's not Mars. It's not Saturn. We're not moving, going, doing. Venus is all about the good things as we personally perceive them.
Okay.
So like, what do I like? How do I like it? What do I like to eat? What do I like to listen to? What do I think is beautiful? That's Venus. So Venus rules your chart, but you have Venus in its own detriment.
Oh, what's that mean?
So we have Venus having a hard time.
Okay.
And she rules the chart, including the first house of you. So when I see Venus in detriment, and by the way, I also have Venus in detriment in the same place. So this is a placement I know something about. You have Venus here in Aries in the 12th house. And when I see the ruler of the first, so the ruler of the self in the 12th house, the 12th in old texts is known as the house of self-undoing.
Huh.
And that can be positive, like ego death. We're compassionate, we relate to all kinds of people. And it can be negative, like I'm literally hurting myself, self-harm, mental, emotional issue, that kind of stuff. And the 12th house is where we see therapeutic environments like hospitals, like ashrams, retreat centers, like anywhere that you'd go for therapy.
Recovery work that I do?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So when I see the ruler of the first and the 12th, I think this person is definitely in some of those environments. Now, in your case, because it's Venus that's there, you are very helped by those environments.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Very helped, and probably helpful within.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've got this, you're an advocate, right?
Yes.
Of these people who are in those same situations. And you also have two more things in the same place. So I'm like, okay, it's not all just like good news going here. We've got two things, and I could go into the deep astrology of what they are, but I know that's kind of technical. Let's just say that you are moving away from whatever brought you into the 12th house environments.
Okay.
So the patterns of behavior, whatever you were doing.
The self-harm I was doing. Okay.
Well, like especially
the addiction, alcohol, drug use, overuse of those things. Okay.
But especially because your 12th is Aries, which is one of Mars's signs. So we do stuff. You're all about doing in this 12th house context. So whatever it was that you were doing that was causing you harm, you've been moving away from that since you began it.
Okay.
Truly. And you have a little asteroid here called Chiron. And Chiron in myth, he's the centaur teacher. He's known for he trains Odysseus, Perseus, all the famous, Greek and Roman. He was their teacher. But he traded his immortality for Prometheus's life. And so he became not immortal, and then he dies in battle, right? Uh-huh. But the whole point of this asteroid, or what I really take it to mean, is that we only heal where we're wounded. And we become the healers that we need, right? Because why would you seek out medicine if you didn't have an issue? Uh-huh. And so we become really good at providing that medicine. So for you, the wound and the healing is there in that 12th house.
I mean, are you serious, though? This is exactly...
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And I can go even away from that kind of stuff, just so we don't think I'm like, oh, I already know about his shows.
No, I mean, but what you're saying is, I mean, you break it down. It's exactly who I am today. So far.
Right. And what's interesting, too, is that leads me to, because in astrology, it's always following breadcrumbs. So I do what's called a rulership tree. Like I said, Taurus rising, that means I'm looking for Venus. Where's Venus? I just talked to you about where she is, but she's being ruled by Mars because Mars rules Aries. So where's Mars? So I'm looking, and I look for Mars. You have an excellent Mars.
What's that mean? So
Mars is how we act, move, and do. It also is how we have conflict, right, and how we argue, but it's really just our principle of motion. And you have Mars in Capricorn, which is its sign of exaltation or best work. Because we don't always do our best work at home. You got, responsible for the pets or the kids or the, water guy comes or whatever. Mm-hmm. Home has distractions and responsibilities. Exaltation is like your favorite vacation spot. Okay. Right? Where you just can do your thing. Now, Mars loves being in Capricorn where you have it because Capricorn is Saturn's sign. So Mars, our personal active doing principle, if we literally were just being logical, like coolly logical about how to do from A to B, that's Mars in Capricorn. Okay. And it's like, wow, it's really easy to get stuff done when I'm not being emotional. Yeah. And you have that ability to move or do or act with that kind of goal orientation and that kind of drive. Capricorn is cardinal. So it's like, I'm moving this direction. Okay. I'm not staying. I'm not changing. I'm taking this forward in this direction. And it makes a nice relationship to your own rising, meaning everything you do, it actually benefits you. And you really benefit by, and you're going to think I'm making this up too. When I'm looking, where is this Mars in Capricorn? It's in your 9th house. The 9th house is the house of higher learning and the house of God in old texts, but it really it refers to anywhere outside of your immediate environment. And
Like spirituality or?
yes,
Okay.
it can refer to that as well, but it literally can refer to foreign travel.
Okay.
It can refer to, so let me step back right a little bit. All of these houses, they mirror each other. So first house of self, well, across the chart, 7th is the house of other.
Okay.
So if I'm telling you about the 9th, higher education, the 3rd is your early education. So foreign travel, 3rd is, your neighborhood.
Okay.
So you benefit by going places.
Definitely.
But also, I know that you mentioned Villanova, and I know that you grew up around there, but literally it looks like you grew up around there.
What do you mean, like from there?
You
Or-
have a Mercury and a Mars really closely together. So they're conjoined almost, meaning your mind and your will are real tight.
Okay.
When you want to do something, you do it. There's almost not like a, hey, can I make my idea? Can I actually get it done?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, no, I'll literally just think it and do it
Okay.
at the same time. Very little time between. Concretize it, make it actual in the world. Instead of just an idea, let's actually do it. And in your case, that is in broadcasting or publishing. The 9th is when people see you all over the place. It's not just your town.
Okay.
It's like the world at large or higher learning environments. And so I can tell that when you were younger, Mercury also refers to our childhood as well as the mind and the speech. You were in higher learning environments, doing stuff in higher learning environments.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I know that you've been a journalist, but I'm sure that you traveled for this kind of work.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And so I see Mercury and Mars together. What do you do? Mars, you speak. Mercury, which is really cool. But then I'm not done yet.
Okay.
Because where is Saturn, who's ruling these guys? Well, Saturn is down in the 4th house of home and family. And Saturn refers to our social burdens. It's like the opposite of Jupiter, right? Saturn is bound by icy rings of its own making. It's literally pieces of Saturn that come off and they form those rings. So like where are we restricted? Where are we made to wait? Or where are we not expanding like Jupiter, but contracting or taking a long time? Not lucky, right? What's our challenge? What is our suffering? And so for you, that was something at home and with family. And it looks like it might have been related to authority figures,
Okay.
selfish authority figures, male. You have an opposition here too. So you've got Saturn opposite the sun, which to me means that there's an interplay or an opposition between who you are and what you have to bear. Between how you present in public, the sun, you have your sun in the 10th house of career and public roles, versus the challenges that you have at home.
Okay.
But the challenges, given that this is Saturn in Leo, which is the sun's own sign, the challenges look like they're also of your own making.
Okay.
But they also are in relation to the group that you're a part of. Aquarius is Saturn's other sign, and it refers to the group. It refers to like the rules of engagement, the laws that govern us, the societies and organizations, right, that we're a part of, even family structure. But it looks like that you have had a hard time being in the group.
Yeah.
And yet it's that very being outside of the group that makes you stand out and that makes you a public personality. And it's precisely those challenges that you've faced in negotiating yourself in relationship to your home and family that has thrust you out into the spotlight and has developed you as a person. It's interesting because Saturn doesn't like being in Leo and the sun doesn't like being in Aquarius. They're in each other's signs. But they have a mutual exchange, which is, again, this kind of lucky break where you're like, okay, I'll teach you if you teach me. So I can help you figure out, right, groups and organizations that I'm a part of. Like your public groups probably helped you figure out yourself.
For sure. Yeah.
And you've also probably helped other people to self-actualize by virtue of sharing your story or by virtue of just being yourself in public and not hiding those challenges, which is the sun in the 10th in Aquarius. It's like, hey, this is the way in which I've had my challenge. And here I'm going to tell you about it. That deep stuff too. The 4th is like, it's whatever was at the bottom of the earth when you were born.
Okay.
So it's like the most invisible. So people can't see your challenges when they meet you, but you would share them
Okay.
By virtue of you. You just would. Because in the 10th house, we're talking to the public. We're in not just our career, but like, what does everybody else need from us? And everybody needs what? Your story. The story of your challenges and how you've moved through them. The Sun, Saturn, and then that Mercury-Mars thing that you've got going on. And the only other thing that is not really here, or that's not in this story, because that's kind of where the rulership tree ends. So it comes down to you and you learning from your own lessons. You learn in private, but you share those lessons in public.
So that specific chart, right? Like it shows that it comes down to me pretty much, like, okay.
That actually you've got a lot of good people around you. Your environments, it looks like, at least in what's expected of you publicly and what's expected of your actions and the things you say, like you have to be very formal. There's kind of a duty bound, like you don't really get to be yourself without being a part of a structure. That's the Sun in Aquarius. So being you is more work than being some other people, but that work is enjoyable to you. It's almost like you chose it, right? This is very you selected work. And it looks like Jupiter rising, that people are there to help and you're there to help the people. The last personal or really important planet that I haven't spoken to at all is your own moon. And you have a moon in the 5th house, and the 5th is the house of personal creativity, romance, joy, and children. And so it looks like you have a lot of fun, and that is how you exist as you do. The moon is the vessel or the body, the internal environment. The Sun is our personality as we express it outward. The moon is like, how do I take in other people's energy and how do I internalize that? Well, you have a lot of fun with it.
Well, what are you seeing? What are you seeing there with relationships? I mean,
well, it looks like you have very high standards for relationships. And when I see the moon in Virgo, Virgo is Mercury's sign. And Mercury in Virgo is really good at taking in all kinds of information and parsing it into meaningful groups. But that can be stressful when it comes to evaluating people and then kind of breaking them down into their habits or their patterns or what they're about. So you have a very hypercritical internal environment of yourself. You're critical of
which goes on to others. Okay, I cut you off. You're saying you're critical of.
That's you finished my sentence.
Okay, yeah.
Which goes on to others, but it's also something that.
Don't bite your tongue. Don't mince any words here. Come on. I mean, seriously.
I won't. I'm not going to mince any words. It looks like you enjoy your work. It looks like you almost have self-care through whatever it is that you're learning, like learning as self-care, but having fun with the learning. So that's not, taboo whatsoever, but it looks like you are more interested in the idea of a relationship than the relationship itself. That like there is an ideal, but it just doesn't work with your lifestyle or hasn't in the past. And specifically too with your career, because Mercury rules 2 signs, Virgo where your moon is, and then also your 2nd house. And the 2nd house is livelihood, earned income, talent, craft. What are you about? What do you do? What do you have? And so for you, Mercury rules both the 5th house of romance, joy, pleasure, and the 2nd house of your own livelihood. So it looks like livelihood is fun, and that there hasn't yet been, or maybe there has and it just hasn't stayed, but a woman who was down for the whole ride and found it as fun, whatever you're doing, as fun as you do. And also that critical environment, it also can be that women have been hypercritical of you.
Okay. Yeah.
As well. And like maybe I'm seeing here too that you have a lot of family, or you have family that is part of your life. It's a big obligation that you have. It's part of being you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how large your family is, but it looks like it's important. And that's not always easy to incorporate with other people, like other people not fitting in your group, especially if you fit in your group, but you don't. Like if you're the outsider, which you are in your family group. So if you're the outsider in your family group, then
I'm the outsider in my family group?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then who would fit?
That's what we touched on a little bit earlier, right? Okay. Because of the selfish male, right?
Potentially.
That's what
It
your words,
looks
not
like
mine.
it looks like to me that
Yeah.
there was probably an early selfish person or like an obligation to a person or their personality, but
Oh,
then
yeah.
also just like self-imposed lessons. Saturn in Leo is like I touched the hot stove.
That's
So-
me, right?
yeah.
Yes, yes.
So I
yes.
learned that it was hot.
Yeah, and my dad, I'll tell you, and you would not know anyway known this, but he was like a functional alcoholic. But like when he came home, there was a real mood that was created. You know what I mean? Like it was like I was constantly like you're on eggshells around this person, and he was a good man and he loved me, but there was a definite obligation to adjust to his being and his personality, and it certainly crafted who I became, I'm sure.
Well, the thing, though, is that this Saturn does not ever leave your fourth house. So now, whether or not it's your dad or it's you, there is always some sense of trial with home and family and roots. So the fourth is not just like your house right now, but also your ancestors, your origin story, that kind of stuff. And so there will always be these challenges. And I say this as someone, my own family, two of my siblings have their Saturn in the fourth.
Okay.
We come from a family where it was kind of more serious and you had to adjust yourself to what was going on. So I understand that. But now, especially that you've had your first Saturn return, that happens when you're about 30, and you'll have a second one just before you turn 60. But usually Saturn gets better with age.
Okay.
So all of these things mellow out, and like whatever it is that is the struggle, it becomes more just a part of who you are than it is like this is my struggle.
Okay.
It's like this is my challenge historically and then forever, right? Being an alcoholic never stops.
Yeah.
It's something that you continue to work with or develop or grow on. And that also, it looks like it's a reason that you have a lot of your community.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, how can you think it's a terribly negative thing? But it is on top of a star. So you have one really important star in your chart, and it's associated with that very Saturn. And that star is called Acubens.
Uh-oh, we're going to the paper now.
Yeah, I wrote it down because I wanted you to know that I wrote it down, and I'm like literally not making this up. This is something that somebody else, very ancient astrologer. And so this particular Saturn on Acubens, I was in one of my favorite places and I was reading some, Firmicus Maternus, some like old astrologer stuff. And I was looking, I'm like, man, this Saturn in Leo, it's in detriment. It's also retrograde and it's conjoined the star. And there was a special section just about this star conjoined Saturn. And that's unusual for me to come across that much information. But it was insisting that having this placement means you have major trials and ordeals, lots of excitement, loss, deception, especially for people in positions of social standing. It's also associated with kidney issues. And so, I mean, you talk about alcoholism and dealing with kidneys and liver and all that. I mean, that's its own thing. But this particular star is associated with all those things when you have a Saturn there. So it's kind of interesting.
So can you read that again? So this is a very unique situation. And this situation brings about what you just read, right? Can you read one more time?
It brings about major trials and ordeals. And in your case, this is in home and family.
Okay.
So this is all applying to home and family. It brings about excitement, but also loss, deception. And this is especially true for people in positions of social standing.
Huh.
So it also gives some social standing,
Okay.
which if you go back to old texts, you might get some kidney issues because you had the money to do so.
Okay.
It's not necessarily all because you're just going to have that. But if you look up the star Acubens, and I'll send you the website that I was looking at with a bunch of other meanings. But that was the only really important star in your chart. I just thought it was striking because that meaning was only given if it's within 30-degree minutes of being exact, and yours is. So let's just say it's so close. It has to be very, very exact, 30 minutes, and it would have been different.
Uh-huh.
And in this case, it was not. So that is, again, the root of this rulership tree. So it's kind of interesting that you have that going on, and then you have at the same time, because you've got this sun, right, that's in Aquarius. At the same time, you have a very interesting interplay between your own sixth house of work and daily responsibility and that sun and this Saturn. and I'm going to summate it because I know we're running a little short on time.
Good.
But you're somebody who is drawn to your daily work. You've got a North Node in the 6th house, and it's in Libra. So the work has to be something you're passionate about. When I see Libra as the 6th, it's Venus's other sign. If you don't love it, it's not going to work.
Okay.
Not going to be done. And also you've got your Pluto there, which means to me that there is some really Plutonic experience, death, rebirth, kind of like you've probably lived and died in a few different jobs.
Yeah.
Right? Like totally revamped who you are or who you're relating to specifically. Libra is all about relationships. It's the scales. So you'd be someone who's passionate about justice. I mean, the scales like to be even and equal and balanced, but you're somebody who's always in pursuit of balance. When I see North Node in Libra, I'm like, oh, this person's pursuing balance. And in your case, it's been riddled with Plutonic deaths and rebirths. Pluto in the 6th also typically gives the 6th is the house of well-being and also illness. So like I joke with clients sometimes, the 6th is the house of teeth brushing, like just maintenance. Like what do you have to do just to exist? But when I see Pluto there, it's like, okay, some major shit happened health-wise.
Yeah, I have a heart problem, like an enlarged heart, like cardiomyopathy when I was a kid. Yeah.
Interesting. That also makes sense for that Saturn in Leo. Leo rules the heart.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So having a big challenge be the heart.
Yeah.
Makes some sense too. So yeah, a problem, right, that you've known about health, but it also relates to your own 12th house because Venus rules it. So when I look, it makes me think that there's something self-undoing wise that also has created or exacerbated daily issues that have involved you living multiple lives in dealing with those issues, but you're continually drawn to that work. And that work is also what brings you into those very therapeutic environments. I find it so cool, though, because you've got this North Node, which is like the attractive end of a magnet. And when I say a node, it's where the moon's orbit intersects the sun's apparent orbit. And so it's kind of where all the light is headed, where the eclipses are, like where is fate pulling everything, like the strings of fate. But one way is the attractive end and one way is the repulsive end. So you're being pulled toward that work and pushed away from the mental and emotional issues.
Okay, which is good. Yeah.
Yeah. It means that is, though, a reason for working, a reason for doing, and it probably keeps you on your own daily care. Like you're probably somebody, for example, who's concerned with your workouts, your physical routine. There's nobody I see with a North Node in the 6th who's not like taking care of themselves.
Really? Okay.
Either by necessity, right? You have a health issue, or because it's just part of your lifestyle and it's part of what you are here to do.
Okay.
The North Node is oftentimes what we're working on. And so, by the way, North Node in Libra is also working on relationships and the daily part of having relationships. It feels like with Pluto here that the Achilles heel for you with a romantic relationship would be whatever the day-to-day is.
Okay.
The minutia.
So it's bullshit that I'm getting caught up in.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
Yes, and also I don't typically talk about transpersonal planets too much because their orbits are so, like Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, their orbits are so wide that it's hard to get perspective. Like I'm going to live through half a Pluto cycle. It takes like 248 years. So if I'm 120, I'll live through half, which is great. But it's hard to see those effects. But you have Uranus. Uranus has an orbit that takes about 84 years. And it is in your 7th house of other. Uranus is shock, change, upset, disruption, literally any cataclysm, any major shakeup and change.
Okay.
So when you have Uranus in the 7th, having constant relationships is challenging. It's like having whoever the other is constantly changing.
Okay.
And in your case, it looks like it's related to your work. It's related to the 9th house. Like, okay, who am I doing stuff with? Who am I publishing with? Who am I traveling to go see? So the other keeps changing. But it also means that you find great inspiration and innovation in other people. Like that one-on-one. You probably have had your mind blown.
Yeah.
Right? Uranus is a mind blow. So you get to come into contact with all these interesting characters. And in this case, your 7th is Scorpio. Scorpio is another of Mars's signs. So these martial characters. Makes sense. Sports, right?
Yeah.
They're all martial characters. Blowing your mind. And you getting to kind of experience that, but it makes also long-term relating difficult
Okay.
because it's going to get shocked and changed. So I would look for, just personally,
Yeah, I was about to ask. So what do you do?
someone who is that Uranus,
Somebody who is, what does that mean? Like,
who is that shock and change in your life. So kind of somebody who, for example, if you got their chart and you notice she's got a Uranus rising,
okay.
because in our charts, it's like our little fingerprint natally, but it also, everything is us coming out and other people coming in. So Uranus in the 7th is a person, as well as, I'm sure you've changed a lot of people's lives, right? And
Nice of you to say, hopefully.
yeah,
We're good, yeah.
well, you have.
Yeah.
You've changed people's lives or really brought some kind of new awareness to them. Oftentimes astrologers will give Prometheus, kind of Uranus and Prometheus are similar. It's like, where am I totally having the light turned on, where I'm like, oh my God.
Yes.
And so in your case, that's with one-on-one interactions. The 7th is one-on-one. And so if you meet someone who is a Scorpio, who's super surprising, try them.
Okay.
Try that person. And I say that it's really helpful in astrology for any listeners out there. If you want to make it real basic with synastry, which is does my chart work with your chart? The biggest thing I see in all of the synastry charts that I pull up is, does their sun see your sun, and does their moon see your moon?
Okay.
Meaning, can it even make contact with? If you think about this circle, right? So we're all standing in a circle and we're all looking in the center. I can't see the person on my left or my right.
Uh-huh.
That's how it is in astrology too. So if you're an Aquarius and they're, a Pisces, they're not going to be able to see you.
Okay.
And you can't see them
Okay.
either. So when it comes to synastry, that's what I look for. Can your suns make a relationship? And can your moons make a relationship? It doesn't all have to be like exciting, like, oh yes, this is a lovely, easy trine. It can be a square. It just has to be like, you have to be able to see each other
Okay.
so that you can get together, or else you're going to miss each other.
Uh-huh.
There are also even deeper techniques that one can use to figure that out. But I would say that unless you are an astrologer or wishing to be, don't even.
Don't even bother? Okay.
Or consult an astrologer. Like, what does this look like? Because I can literally take charts and put them together into a composite chart and then be like, oh, the nature of y'all's collective relationship is this.
See, I can consult you now. This is my last freebie over
There
here.
you go.
Let me ask you a couple questions, because
sure.
I'm going to repurpose this for me.
Mm-hmm.
So does that chart, now, is that exactly as it was when I was born, or has it changed over the course of my life?
So interesting. There are
Because
progressions.
this is for people who don't know anything about this.
Your natal chart won't change. So it's like a snapshot of where everything was when you were born in the sky. And it's all about gravity, right? So we all know, we can see the tidal effect of the moon, right? It moves the water everywhere. And women, it moves us in our cycles. And, we get that. The gravity is really obvious. But everything else is all the same. It's kind of like the gravity of things and how it was impacting you when you arrived. But then there's also the transit sky. And when people say transit, they mean, what's the current space weather and how does it vibe with the space weather when you were born?
And that factors into that reading today?
No.
Okay, it doesn't?
No.
Okay.
I haven't factored in the current weather at all. I just pulled it up.
Okay.
I'm just looking at it. I'm looking at it, and it makes sense that we're talking today. Everything's in Aries.
Okay.
So the 12th house, that makes sense, including the midheaven. But yeah, no, the current weather for you, let's see a forecast for you. You're going to have a great summer.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. You're about to have a Jupiter return. And everybody likes a Jupiter return. It's not like Saturn, where you're like, oh, I'm going to grow up. Great. How much fun is this lesson going to be? No, Jupiter's more like, okay, I want all the cash and prizes that I was promised when I was born.
Okay.
Like, where's my abundance? Where's my social benefit? Where's my expansion and stuff like that? And so it's fun. And it doesn't happen very often. I think I'm going to blank on Jupiter's orbit. I want to say 18 years.
Okay.
But it's,
Infrequent.
seldom enough to
Yeah.
where it's a big fun time.
Okay.
And Jupiter will be heading into Taurus on May 16th.
Okay.
So mark that down, May 16th. It should be awesome fun for you. Currently, we have Venus in Taurus, and Venus is the ruler of Taurus. So that happened about a week ago, and I'm sure it's been a nicer week than maybe the preceding weeks before that for you. You will also have a big shift coming up soon with your career and your public roles. You might get tapped for some really crazy, powerful position because we have Pluto. Pluto is, death, rebirth, etc., but it's also like the undercurrents of power. Like, why does someone get famous, or why does, someone get picked for this or get all these followers, or, why is so-and-so canceled? Pluto does all that kind of stuff. And Pluto is moving from your own 9th house, where it has been since 2008, to your 10th house of career and public roles. And it moves in tonight, overnight.
Tonight? Oh, wow, okay.
So maybe, and because it's your own 10th and your midheaven is there, the highest point in the sky, the most public part of you, there might be some like really public, really important thing. Like maybe ESPN is like, hey, do you want to go to the NCAA tournament and be the main guy or whatever?
Something like that. Yeah, okay. Look at you.
Or it could be meeting a plutonic figure. So maybe you do an interview and it's like, Jerry Jones or someone just kind of like, oh.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm from Dallas. I had to use that.
Yeah, okay.
You can't go out in Dallas without kind of looking down your nose at this. Anyway.
So anything else on that?
Let's see. This summer, there is a Venus retrograde, and it's happening in July and August. That's going to be on top of your own Saturn there in the 4th house, that place where we spent so much time. But Venus and Saturn, actually, it's a lot better of a pair than you might think. Venus's own sign, Libra, is actually where Saturn exalts and does its own best work. So you might be coming to some sort of like really fun or really like a warmer place with your own home and family. I'm not sure if that involves like traveling to see them. It doesn't really look like that. It looks like you just might have a summer where your home is excellent. Maybe you have people there. Or maybe there's a new person in your life and they end up moving in, something like this.
Oh, wow.
But something really good at home.
Okay.
In July and August. And that's after you have your own little glow up in May. It'll be nice. It'll be really nice. I'm trying to think of anything else that hits your chart big time.
So you just gave me that is, that's a fortunate thing for me, what you just described. Now, do you ever tell anyone, okay, all you have to do now is stay out of your own way? How do you tell people to manifest this stuff? Or it's in the stars, it's in the planets, there's nothing you can do?
So I like to use astrology to give context more than predict.
Okay.
Because it's very difficult to say exactly what something's going to look like. But if you are watching and noticing, it helps to be
in tune.
It helps for present moment awareness. It's kind of like a little schematic. If I'm like, okay, I'm looking for some really awesome thing to happen to me in my career over the next 3 days, then I'll be looking out for that. But in contrast, the reason that I became a public astrologer, I was doing it for a while, not public because I like being taken seriously in other fashions. But I was looking out for a really bad transit for myself, like a really bad transit, like epically bad. And I was looking out for it all day. And that was the day that my ex-husband tried to kill me. Okay. So luckily, because I'd been expecting this all day, I was like, oh, I have the presence of mind to respond to this in a way that I've already prepared for. Like I was preparing for some really tough thing to happen. And this is that. Okay, let me...
Thank you for sharing that, by the way.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
It is what has convicted me to be like, okay, well... I'm not going to say it saved my life, but it made my life a lot easier, and it made the trauma a lot smaller, perhaps, than it could have been. And so I'm like, okay, I got to share this with people.
Yeah.
And I don't always tell people.
And that was the day you decided I'm going to be public with this. Yeah.
Yes. I didn't go public that day, but I decided that day, definitely. And I have told people that bad stuff was going to happen too. So I'm not just, blowing smoke up your ass with these things. Okay. I've definitely told people that bad stuff was going to happen, even recently in their chart.
How long does it take you to do this?
There is enough material for me to go forever. It's kind of like it's like a forever fidget spinner. I mean, there's a million different layers. There is planetary astrology, there's fixed star astrology, the astrology of the luminaries, the sun and moon. There are a few asteroids I follow. I told you about Chiron, the one. Lilith is another one that I follow. There's so many different, like as soon as I catch a pattern with a planetary body and it repeats itself in my client charts, I'm like, okay, well, I can start using this in my charts. And I'm actually, I'm signed up for a course I have not taken yet. I missed it, so I have to like go back and listen to all the recordings on what are called harmonic aspects. So those are not just squares and oppositions and, you know, trines. Those aren't just really easy 90, 180. It's like, you know, semi-sextiles and quintiles. And I can apply those. I just don't know how yet.
Okay. So there's even more work for Rachel Ruth Tate. So how did you get into this?
Plato.
Really? Well, okay, elaborate a little bit.
There was one New Year's Eve, and I think it was like, I don't even know when, 2013 or 14, but I was reading Timaeus. And I was reading Timaeus, and I was in because I was kind of under the weather, right? And everybody else was out partying. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to stay in and read my
For people who don't know, what is Timaeus?
It's a book.
Okay.
It's a book title. It's Plato's last book that he ever wrote.
Okay.
And I was reading it. I wasn't feeling well. And then I got worse and worse and worse until I had like this crazy fever. And I don't even know if I finished the book, but I woke up and I was like, oh, I know astrology. Plato talks about the forms, solid, liquid, gas, plasma, and you're like, oh, earth, you know, water, air, fire. Okay, I get it. Literally, this is physical and metaphysical. Metaphysical isn't a thing. It's all just physical. So I can literally just take what I know about archetypes, about, I was a huge nerd for history and especially Hellenistic stories, traditions. Homer and I were tight. You know, I was all about those archetypes. And it was kind of like putting them all together. And really, I just began to think of astrology as like a very complex form of timekeeping. Because it's where we started. When we think about the lunar month and the sundial, like, why are there 12 hours on a clock?
Yeah.
This is all, the days of the week are even named after the days, like the planets that rule them. It's kind of, once you get into it, you're like, oh, okay. Interesting. Like this has been informing everything. I mean, Aristotle was Plato's student. He was a big astrologer. And you've got, you know, Galileo, huge astrologer. I'm like, wait, every really famous scientist until just about the 20th century was a huge astrologer.
And that's when you say it's physical, right? Like almost like it's right there. It's really not a guessing game, right? So let me ask you a couple more questions. Where did you find that, you know, we talked about your life. You grew up sort of where I did, outside of Philadelphia, and then you moved around. You were North Texas. You went to SMU. How did you find the courage to step out of the box and do something like this? When you talk about that, I'm just going to say on paper it's sort of streamlined.
I have been a rebel for a long time. I started working when I was 12, and I was working in such a capacity, doing fashion modeling through the Campbell Agency in Dallas, where like I was independent enough to like travel on my own and save money on my own and basically take my own power. And I started taking yoga because that was what my agent said I could do. You can do yoga and cardio, that's it. You know? And so I was doing yoga and I kept going back to the mat and I didn't really understand why. But coming from a military family that was very outside the box already. So I started, 15 years old, 16 years old, taking these steps outside the box. And then at 23, I moved to Los Angeles to manage an Equinox Fitness out there in Marina Del Rey.
I read that about you. Okay, yeah. Uh-huh.
And when you find yourself 23 years old in, west side of Los Angeles, it's very easy to get involved in all kinds of things, especially when my family was far away. And I had that full-time job for just a little bit, and then it kind of turned into, took a few different full-time jobs, went into Silicon Beach, and you realize startups are like really just places where they take advantage of young, talented people for money. Mm-hmm. And so I got out of that and became a consultant. So I was consulting early stage sales and biz dev, and I started consulting for meditation studios. So I was working for Unplug Meditation as doing their sort of
Unplug,
studio
that's
membership.
The big app, right? Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sue Schwartz is amazing, by the way. She's phenomenal as a person, the owner of Unplug. But she hired me to develop their membership program. And then I decided I wanted to teach instead. And they have an astrologer there, Danny Beinstein, and she was teaching these astrology meditation classes. And I had already been reading I had already been involved in that in my own on the side. And so I said, well, let me just apply this to the rest of my life. And coming out to my parents was very difficult.
I bet, yeah.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
My dad is a statistician. And let's just say that it took a while for me to feel comfortable, but they were actually awesome about it. Mm-hmm. I thought they were going to think that I was like worthy of being committed. Instead, they were like, oh, that's really cool. Like, people are paying you for that? Interesting.
Yeah.
I had to call my dad and say, hey, Dad, so I'm teaching meditation at the Den. I'm teaching psychic meditation, chakra meditation, crystal meditation. And then I opened my own studio in Dallas, and it was open for 2 years. It was called The Refuge, and we made a really large impact in just a couple of years. But we closed during the pandemic because I was in my 20s and floating a business. So.
And then you and your husband moved here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's been here.
He's been here. Okay.
He started Balcones.
That's right. Mike was telling me about that.
Yeah.
And so you met, and then you moved here with him, or
yes.
to be with him.
Yep.
Okay. And so you're close to home, right? I mean, not that far. What is the name of your podcast?
Texastrology.
Texastrology. Where else can people find you and your work and stuff?
They can find me on Instagram at Rachel Ruth Tate or at Texastrology, and on my website, www.texastrology.com.
And what if people want to use you for like a reading? Just DM you or whatever?
They can book a reading. I've got this awesome thing now where they can like do it. It schedules, it puts it on my calendar, puts it on their calendar. We both get the invite. Like, it's advanced, and it took me a while. But
and it's on your website?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. And if they're listening to this and they want to book a reading, they should use the code I love you, no spaces. It gives you half off.
All right. Now we're talking. A last question for you. What is the key to progressing in meditation?
Interesting. Meditation has many definitions, right? Mm-hmm. The simplest for me is that meditation is the practice of returning to a point of focus of your choosing, returning to the present moment, if you prefer. And I think we meditate more often than we believe we do. I believe we're meditating every time we're doing work and we're coming back, we're refocusing ourselves. But truly, everything is a practice. So if you wanted to be amazing at the violin, you would play.
Yes.
Just like meditation. If you want to be amazing at it, practice. But it's not just sitting on your knees practicing. Some people prefer to meditate while moving. Some people prefer to meditate while lying down, doing yoga nidra or a body scan. Some people meditate by, doing prayer. Some people sit that crisscross applesauce, look just like a yogi,
Yeah.
You can meditate any way that works for you. I always tell clients it's a tool if it works for you. But I think there are a lot of great apps out there. You mentioned the Unplug app. I'm on an app called Fit On.
Yeah. You're featured on there. Yeah.
They've got some free meditation, and there are so many apps, Insight Timer, Headspace. If you are on the Google Play Store, Atom app. There are a bunch of different awesome apps for meditation. And even a few minutes, like if you add it into your routine, it's kind of like anything. If you add a few minutes of anything, that adds up 2 hours and days, and over time, then all of a sudden you're a pro.
Thank you. And anything else for me?
No, thank you for letting me be here. It was fun to
really
read this chart,
yeah.
and I hope that there was anything interesting.
Oh, there was plenty interesting. Right. I mean, especially if you're me. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete. That's it for this episode, folks. Meet me here every full and new moon for more cosmic wisdom. For now, you can find me on Instagram at Rachel Ruth Tate and at Texastrology, or between the pages of my book, Meditations on Being, available on Amazon and wherever else you purchase books.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.
In a world where dreams meet reality, there exists a place where your business can flourish. That place is Shopify. Imagine having the power to craft your online store with tools that make it as easy as a gentle breeze. Whether you're an artisan of handmade wonders, a creator of digital treasures, or a curator of the latest trends, Shopify stands by your side. With its customizable templates, seamless integrations, and support that's always there, your dream store is just a heartbeat away. Join millions of visionaries around the globe and let Shopify guide you on your journey. Visit roguemedianetwork.com/Shopify. That's roguemedianetwork.com/SHOPIFY. And embark on your free trial. Shopify, where your commerce dreams come to life.